Relax. Relax. There we go. Oh, yes. Well, welcome to probably one of the most important conversations of the century. Look, forget about the Democratic National Convention, even though we need to watch it. Listen, this is an important conversation regarding women, for women, about women, and the state of women. And you know what? And we are. It's a very kind of mute guess because the whatever it said. So I'm sorry. I'm trying to read all this stuff up here. You guys also wait a minute. So Ebony, you muted yourself. Okay, I'm just trying to get it. I don't see Erica. So anyway, I'll just leave that alone. Wait, what is it saying? Oh, okay. So you guys muted yourself. So I'm sorry, y'all. So what's up, everybody? How's everybody doing? Welcome to the State of Woman, State of the Black Woman. And I wanted to come on and have a discussion regarding Black women and what's going on. So we can talk about different things and different subjects and different topics regarding what's out here on these streets regarding women. But I want to kind of focus on the WAP video and the sexuality and the abuse of Black women in our community. And I wanted to have that discussion to say, and let's see our thoughts and let's see perspective and see what's going on and how it's affecting our community. So as it stands now, I have different educators on here. I was looking for some. Oh, I got Eric on here as a teacher. So we had a couple of teachers on here. I don't know if everyone's going to show up, but praise God that are here. And so I just want to just talk a little bit about why this was very important to me to have this discussion. And I pray that it's not the last discussion. And in all, listen, if you don't mind, can you just share this video? Please, can you share it with your women, with your daughters, your cousins, your mothers, your aunts, your sisters, and your grandmothers? Because I wanted to talk about the sexuality, the sexualizing of Black women. We realized that since we came from Africa, since we were on that boat, sailed over to America, even before then, they were capturing 12, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old girls and raping them. Some were impregnated, and most all of them were raped because they did not see Black women as human. They saw them as a sexual being. So they took advantage of them. And so that stereotype, that mentality has perpetuated throughout centuries as women being Black women being only looked at as sexual sexual women or sexual beings, and not women with emotions. We only good for is to have sex and to be able to produce children, cook and clean, all the stereotypes that you can imagine that Black women have been captured in. But I want to say this, ladies and gentlemen, I want to say this. I happened to catch the WAP video, and in watching that WAP video, I thought it was the most degrading thing that we've seen today, that I've seen in my lifetime, without watching porn, of showing women as sexual beings. That we can, if you don't know what WAP stands for, we're talking about Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion video. And the sad part about it to me is that, yes, they're making money, but what's even sadder is that those that are in charge, the people that are in charge of the music industry, think it's okay to allow Black women to be betrayed again as a sexual dummy, but living, if you know what I'm saying. It's okay. I don't see any other music industry telling us to we don't see country music calling their women bad names. Let's see, not sure if there's me, but I hear lots of static. There might be useless. I don't know. I got these fans on, because I'm in this room with all these lights and it's kind of hot. So I can't say, getting back to the conversation, so we know that country music, you don't hear anybody in the country industry calling their women B's and H's. We don't see a Nelly taking a credit card and sliding it down a woman's crack. We don't see women in tight clothes. We talk about Sir Luke, who kind of introduced us to the type of videos that we are seeing today. And so, and just go and talk about the sexualizing of women and the abuse of it. And so to me, when I saw Cardi B with this video and the sexualizing of breasts and TNA, I thought it was very degrading, because now we're establishing in a new generation that these are the things, my behind and my breast is the thing that gets me the things that I needed and I want in life, and that should not be. And this all, I believe, now this is just me, so in my little finite mind, which is this much, I know from seeing, I remember, what's his name? Elder Craig Lewis, he had started this thing, The Truth About Hip Hop, and how the enemy couldn't capture Black people because Black folks wasn't biting off bats' heads. And so from there, they used rap to draw Black men in, but they could not draw the Black women in as strong. And so now we have a Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion and other people who have been drawn in. And now we have drawn in where women do not have any borders. They don't have any, everything is what it is. My blank part is gushy and wet. If I want something paid, all I got to do is, all these connotations to sexual things. And some of you may say, we've heard that through other music. We may have, but I'm going to tell you this. My parents, if they did, I never heard it from my parents. I never heard it played. I never saw a video regarding it. So today we don't even realize what our children are listening to and accepting and becoming part of, because we just don't know, right? We just don't know. So what begins to happen, these images and these thoughts begin to be part of our children's identity. And we're wondering why girls are walking around with all their gut out. Now, let me tell you something. Hey, I ain't hating on nobody. If you got the bod to do it, do your thing. But I don't want it to be because you think this is the way to capture or get a husband or get a boyfriend, that you have to be sexual to be in a relationship. And then not only that, we look at Megan Thee Stallion, who would not press charges because her boyfriend shot her and she did not press charges. And they thought, and this was as a norm in this generation. So another thing that they're saying is, okay, it's okay if we beat the crap out of you. That's love. That's how I show you I love you. So there is something wrong with the thought processes of our young girls. And I want to talk about it from what these teachers see in school. I wanted to talk to other generations about what they're seeing. We got counselors on here. We got pastors, we got mothers, we got young folk, and all type of generational people on here to share in this conversation. So I'm gonna open it up. If you want to speak, please, and put your mic off mute, and everybody else keep their mic on mute, and everybody just do your thing. Okay. Introduce yourself first, and then go ahead and speak. Whatever you want to say regarding what the conversation we just laid out.
Hi, my name is Tia Payne, and I'll speak from the aspect of kind of like the abuse aspect, because that's what I do. I advocate for victims of intimate partner violence. And one area that we've been exploring lately, when you think of a woman of color being shot or abused by a Black man, we've run into a lot of times they don't want to press charges, or they don't want to call the police for fear of, everybody know now we have so many racial injustices going on, Black men being shot and killed by police. The justice system alone, I'm getting 1,000 years for the same crime that somebody else got 2 years for. So we, as the Black woman, we tend to not be willing to put the Black man in that situation, even if they've wronged me. I'm not going to call the police, or I'm not going to press charges, because if I do, what if he gets shot and killed? Or, what if he, gets more years than he should for this crime? And then I'm going to blame myself because I'm the one turned him in. So we tend to start shying away from turning them in, or we think, we can meet that justice on our own, or I'll find my brothers and my cousins to handle this situation. At least he got something, but I'm not doing him bad if I turn him into the system. And so, as an advocate, I fight that battle of trying to encourage, to press charges, but also having the understanding that as people of color, when it comes to crime and different things like that, we are not treated fairly. So turning the black man in who's so for so many years have been treated, so horribly by the justice system, it becomes a burden that a lot of black women aren't willing to face.
So Tia, so can I ask you something? So when they come in so how I mean, are they, like, for instance, Megan the Stallion, she, for that reason, just what you said. So how many, is it majority of them? What's the age range when they come in?
If we're talking about coming in for a shelter stay, the age ranges from 18 up to however old, and then we have multiple children that come in just with their parents. As a youth advocate as well, going into the schools talking about healthy relationships, we have quite a few teenage girls who are just in general not in healthy relationships. And unfortunately, what we see nowadays is healthy relationships, although abnormal in our eyes, is starting to become normal in our young teens' life, because that's what they're expecting, the way they talk to each other, the conversations that they're having. Even my girlfriends, tend to call me, "Hey B, what's up?" So if I see it as, I know you and I had talked about that term of endearment. If a guy is saying the same thing to me, I'm suddenly got butterflies, like, oh, he must care so much about me. So, I've worked with young girls as young as 11 years old who tend to, if this is what I've seen growing up, if this is what I'm around on a day-to-day basis, my norm is to go find what I'm most comfortable in. And this is that situation that I'm comfortable in. Or if nothing else, I'm going to recreate that environment so I can be comfortable as well. So it's just, a round robin effect of, I was a child growing up, now I'm grown, and now my kids are seeing the same exact thing as well.
Wow, that's pretty interesting. So can I ask you something? How many wow, that's really interesting. So these young girls, their parents, how old are their parents? Like in their 20s and their 30s, like early late 20s, early 30s?
We get a wide range of ages, honestly. We get young parents, we get older parents, we get single women that come in. I don't want to pinpoint the age, because I've worked with every age when it comes to domestic violence or sexual assault. It's There's no age to it. Sometimes we find ourselves in those situations, and we grew up like that. So of course I'm repeating this. I did the same thing. I grew up in a very abusive household. My first marriage, my first relationship, I repeated the cycle as well. So if that's what we're taught, that's what we're doing. So if I could say, we have 30 to 40 women, that'll come into the shelter. Of those 30 to 40 women, we might have 15 of them that's women of color, because again, a lot of times people think if I come to shelter, then I have to get the police involved, or I have to tell who did it. So now I'm really not going to shelter because I don't want to get him in trouble. And then, not to mention, you think of all the feelings involved. I might have children with this person, so it goes a lot further than I don't want to get them in trouble. This may be the only way I've known to be taken care of. I've never worked a job. He provides everything for me and my children. So it's so many things that go into that, that people choose to stay. Some people, when they do come to shelter, they'll go back. Shelter is a whole different environment. So it just depends on the person, honestly, on whether or not they're ready, truly ready to get out of that situation, whether or not they'll continue to be there.
Wow, that's some good information. I'm gonna be pulling on your brain, so just get ready. So anybody else, please jump in if you wanna jump in on that. Erica, what you got to come on?
Hey, everybody, I'm Erica. So I am in education, and I've taught in New York City. I've taught in Camden, New Jersey, Philly, and I currently teach in Chicago. And so I've taught K to 12, and so I really get to see the manifestation of life imitating art in real time. And so, just listening to the conversation and the topic at hand, I found out what a swag party was from a first grader, right? And I'll tell you, a swag party is when you go into a room with music, you turn the lights off, and you allow boys to grind on you and to touch you inappropriately. I found this out from a first grader because a first grader, I heard her say, "Are you coming to the swag party?" to another first grader several years ago, right? And so, in addition, I didn't see the WAP video. I didn't need to see it because I know the fruit of Cardi B and Meg the Stallion. And honestly, I've heard a couple people talking about it on social media, and the WAP. I honestly did not know what it meant until I was just sitting there and was like, "Wait, what would Cardi B say?" And then I was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! You gotta be kidding me!" And so I have a group of 11th graders that are part of my advisory that I followed since ninth grade. And you would not believe how many times I've had conversations. Every Thursday, I have conversations with them about life topics. They get to ask me anonymous questions. And I hear them talk about how they think they do relationships. And it's based off of the framework of what they see in love and hip hop. I've explicitly had young girls tell me that they love it when their boyfriends call them this name, that name, argue with them. They do stuff to make them angry with them because this is a representation of what they see on television. When I was growing up, it was a different world. It was the Cosby Show. It was Living Single. It was like, even though it was sexual innuendos mentioned on those shows, you had to be a little savvy to get the understanding of what it was. And now the framework is what you see on reality TV shows. I get text messages like, "Hey, Miss Will, please don't tell anybody that I told you this, but here's so and so Instagram and private room and Snapchat, and you got girls doing girls on girl actions for boys in order to get their attention." And so, even when you look at the marketing of how they do people like Nicki Minaj and Meg Thee Stallion with the bright neon colors and all of that stuff, they're really targeting, in the Barbie look, they're targeting 8 to 24-year-olds. You know what I'm saying? So even the music, we can play around, and I hear so many people, especially I've heard some Black women say some real asinine things like this is okay and so forth and so on. And it's not okay because unfortunately in our community, when you look at people who have a level of influence, they are always going to the people who are entertainers, so forth and so on. And unfortunately, from my experience in working in New York, Jersey, Philly, and Chicago, a lot, not all, but enough of our young girls are basing their framework on how to do life and relationship based off people like Cardi B and Meg the Stallion. It is ridiculous, it's sickening, and it's continuing this traumatic pathology that I see constantly. I've had to call cops on older men coming up to the high school to pick up girls. You know what I'm saying? So like the people can, and the lack of accountability and the fact that I know Black women who are medical doctors who are having conversations about this WAP and how they want to embrace their sexuality and model themselves not after what they've accomplished in their profession, but after what they see Cardi B and Meg The Stallion doing. And so it's really ridiculous. It's sickening. And at some point, of course, the change has to happen in our households.
Wow, that's good. I will be tagging you a little bit more too, Erica, because I wanted to just dove in a little bit. How have you seen the dress and the culture within the hallways of the school? You know, do you see that every time? Sometimes when these videos come out, do the dressing and the attitudes and their thought processes get worse? Do they get, do you guys have a dress code in school? Do they try to dress like these people on the video?
So my school has a very strict dress code. So that doesn't fly during the day. But what does happen is when you see students transition from class to class, you hear the songs, you see them trying to twerk and do whatever real quick in the hallway. You hear the conversations that happen at lunch. Where in my school, there's a couple of like blind spots where girls and guys will try to hide and they're, they have their phones out, they're playing the music, so forth and so on, and they're doing whatever in spots that they think that can be not recognized. But what I am overwhelmingly seeing is this really play out on social media, and girls openly being okay to have a simulated sex acts with this music playing in the background. So since this video has come out, there's been more access, or more of, okay, let's be cool, let's be hip, let's be on social media, or let's be in more, especially Snapchat, because it disappears or whatever it does, and simulating these things to this music.
So do the parents know what these kids are doing, or you think it's just that parents don't have time because of working, or they just don't have time to monitor what's happening out here? Because there's so much music out here, because they can drop something and it'll never hit TV, but it'll hit Instagram or something like that. So the parents will never know until it blows up, something like we see it now, and it's out of control. So
it's all of the above. Parents either don't know or don't what I have experienced with some parents is, you let them know about it in the most respectful way you can. They flip out and do this whole big drum, cuss their child out, and then the child still gets the Jordans, the iPhone, the blah blah blah, or whatever. Or the parent has a very similar toxic relationship with whoever they're with at the time, and so even though they may come against or reprimand their child in my presence, what I ultimately end up finding out behind the scenes from the child is, well, my mom is with Larry, and Larry treat her like whatever, or my mom listen to the same stuff. So I want to say, there, in my experience, it's 15% of the parents that I've dealt with who really are the ones who might not know, or if they do find out, they're trying to get intervention, counseling, support services for their girls. But it's a whole nother slew of them who model the same behaviors.
Wow. All right. Thanks, sis. I'm going to tap into you again. Anybody else who wants to be next to have their, get their, I want to hear everybody's thoughts about this. Ed, Pastor Shauna, Kiana.
Well, Friday. Hey, everybody. So I'm Ebony Borden. It's great to be here. I guess I'm here on a few different levels, but I'm a just come off the hip with the talking of about from the parent side, right? I have 5 children from the ages of 1 to 11. And for me, I think it was all in above mix, whereas all of my children are very different. And if you know my children, then you know they have very different needs as far as how much monitoring you need to do with them. They have very different needs of, what kind of conversations they even carry if my eyes are closed or I'm upstairs. And so, reality is this: we live in a completely different world than what we lived in when I was growing up. That's reality. And so for me, I can say for me, I am learning that I have to be 20 steps ahead of my children. Now, I may be older, but I'm doing this thing at a younger, like my kids, my oldest child is 11. I'm 41 years old. Most of my friends, their kids graduated college. They done seen this already, right? So, I don't know what it is to have an 8-year-old, a 9-year-old, or a 10-year-old singing WAP. I don't know that. Like, I didn't come from that. I came from self-destruction. I came from, KRS-One. I came from those kind of days. I didn't come from a time where you had to worry about an 8-year-old or mine, an 11-year-old singing. And so, when you have that and then you have ministry in the background, I come from that religious thing where you be like, no, don't listen to that. Don't listen to that. And so you try to guard their ears, you try to guard their heart, you try to guard their mind, but then you put them right out into this world where they have teachers and students and all of that stuff that they really spend most of their time with. So for me, it wasn't in my house where my kids started listening to this. It was right in the school system. Okay? So I'm sending my babies to school where I think they're safe, and then all of a sudden they coming home. I'm like, how you know that song? So I started doing little things like turning it off a talk radio that I like to listen to and actually turning it to regular music so I can hear what they knew. And what I understood is that my kids were singing these songs and rambling them off. But what I also understood is the moment I asked them what it meant, they had no idea. So my kids and your kids and our kids are growing up in a culture where back when Eazy-E and them were here or were performing and they were Snoop Dogg and they were using that B word, it was degrading. It was a how dare you. Women were offended. But now you have a whole generation that is growing up when it's a term of endearment. They have no idea what that word means. So what it says is not that we should be offended by Meg Thee Stallion. We shouldn't be offended by the Cardi B, because the reality is these kids have choices. And so they're being indoctrinated into a musical society and an industry where we really should be indoctrinating them into the way we live, right? If it's God who you follow, if it's Jesus Christ who you follow, the only way you can really truly follow him come hell or high water is when you're indoctrinated. But if everything you know is bringing you to this place of Meg Thee Stallion and Cardi B, you got to be like a parent like me. Okay, let me go ahead and do a word study on this. You see this? Let me go on and do a word study on what's happening with these songs so I can break it down. My little daughter she's 11. And she had 3 friends over here last week. And I literally sat them in front of me. I said, okay, so I hear this B word going around. Let's look at the B word. It's in the dictionary. Let's see what it means. We talked about it. So then I took them all the way back to how the B word, the female dog, functions. What does it function like in reality? And by the time I was done, they were like, what? Oh, so it's not that, oh, that's my B. It's not that. It is this. This is what it's really saying. And so what we have to look at is, man, do Cardi B and Meg Thee Stallion really have a point? Did they come up with an idea? Did they insert themselves into a system, or did the system bring them in to the point where they knew that their needs will be met? You understand what I'm saying? Because people that didn't really follow that, you don't really hear much from them on mainstream. And when you do see that they didn't take the bite or they didn't bite the apple, you hear them as one-hit wonders. So is it a point? Because reality is you can't move nothing unless society make you move. So it's not the industry. It's the people that make up the industry. It is also the people that follow the industry. It is also the ones who big up the Meg Thee Stallions and the Cardi B's. Listen, I don't have no issues with neither one of them. I'm gonna be honest. Do what you gotta do, because it's the mentality that has to be attacked. And they're just really doing, honestly, what a lot of women want to do anyway. It is a false sense of women independence. It is that thing where you have been not necessarily hurt by men, because all women that feel like that were not hurt by men, but it's a place of empowerment that many women desire, bottom line. And they just happen to bring it out in a way that is shocking to many, but not surprising to most.
That's good. That's good. And I still want to hear some of the other stuff that we had a discussion about. That was good. And y'all kind of smart, man. I don't have to say much. Pastor Shauna, Kiana,
I wanted to talk in regards of, and Ebony just kind of tapped on it, the women, this women liberation and in regards to Black women and our sexuality. You mentioned when you opened up how, we have been sexualized. And when we go back, like you said, that came from slavery, because we were sexualized, when we were in our land, in our own environment, our own men didn't look at us that way. But when we came, here through slavery, we know, how we were treated, how we were raped and abused, and, having children with the slave masters and all this and that. and we became this, you know, we had different bodies. We were, you know, we were fine. Okay. You know, Black women, we fine, right? You know, so we came over here fine, ain't seen nothing like this, right? You know, we got these full lips, we got these banging bodies, and we smelling like cocoa butter, and you know, they're like, oh Lord, like what is these women here? And so now we started to be over sexualized, and so now it became this, you know, that's what you're, because not only were we fine, we were fine, but we were also smart. We can have our businesses, we can function, we can take care of ourselves, we can take care of our families. So instead of allowing us to continue to have self-esteem, to have confidence, is no, I have to demean you and bring you down to nothing more than a whore, nothing more than somebody who can just for good, for just literally laying on your back. That's all you're good for. And so now, instead of saying, wait a minute, instead of coming out of that mentality, we have this mentality that this other mentality rose up and say, no, I'm going to take that back. And how I'm going to take that back is I'm going to use my sexuality in whatever way I want. Meaning, instead of me keeping myself, no, I don't have to do that, because I can go around here and be a whore, and then that's cool because now I'm in control. So then there's this false narrative that there's this control when it's really not control, because, you know, at the end of the day, when you're losing control and you're making yourself, when you're degrading and demeaning your own self. You know, nobody is doing that for you when you're taking your body and say, you know, I can sleep with 5 men in a day, but it's my body, you know. And so now when you look at the WAPs, instead of, now you have 2 women who are major influencers in our culture right now to say, wait a minute, you know, this is how you get your tuition paid. You know, you got an ATM right in the middle of your legs. Girl, you better use that thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So instead of Nelly sliding the ATM card down the booty, we got our own ATM. We putting the ATM card in there ourselves. Ching, ching, PIN number, boom, tuition paid, boom, boom, Louis bag, boom, boom, rent paid, car note, whatever it is, and not realizing that in itself. So now we're saying, okay, it's okay if I'm a hoe as long as I'm getting money.
Mm-hmm. I'm getting paid.
So at the end of the day, so now we have children, you know, like Erica said, now you're targeting children between 8 and 24 with this mindset of, okay, now you don't have to go to school to become a teacher, a counselor, whatever, you know, you can just slang that. You got a stripper and somebody who's saying I'm using my coochie to get money. And so now this is the idea that's being pumped out. So there's no, you know, Whitney Houston's, there's no, you know, the self-destruct, you know, there's no there's not this general or mainstream positivity for Black women. So now the mainstream note is all you is a whore. All you good for is that big old booty. And so isn't it interesting how we were talked about and made to feel bad for having big butts and full lips? And now that's a thing. That's a cross-cultural thing now. Now you see everybody with full lips and big butts. And you got to look like, wait, what y'all? I remember when I started seeing white girls with big butts, I said, what they eating? what diet they on now?
Mm-hmm.
But now it's not, but now it's the thing. You know, now they'll go and pay for it. So my point is that going back to that fine line, it's okay. And I think a lot of times we shame women, especially Black women, for being in touch with their sexuality. So now you got people that actually enjoy sex and are married and all that, and that's cool, right? You know, you can enjoy sex. That's what God created it for. But at the same time, there's a fine line between being loose and being a whore and being in touch with your sexuality. Those two are two different things, because promiscuity and being in touch with your sexuality are tapping into two different things. Most time that promiscuity, you operating out of a trauma versus versus you being in touch with your sexuality, is you just being comfortable with who you are, what you like, and that you are a sexual being. Those are two different things. And so instead, women were not, especially Black women, you know, we were not given that space to be comfortable. If you were comfortable with sex and sexuality, you were a whore. Either you a whore or none. So there was no in between. And so now you got people that's coming out giving us liberation. The Cardi B's and the Meg Thee Stallions sound real good to people who haven't been liberated, to people who have been in the closet about their sexuality. And I'm not saying in a homosexual way. I'm saying just being in the closet, being private about, you know, even your heterosexual feelings. Mm-hmm. So I think even in we have to be, even as leaders, especially in the church, we have to stop shunning this conversation of sex and actually talking about it and quit putting everything under the rug. Like, you know, no one is talking about it because just like Ebony said, the kids hear the stuff at school. Mm-hmm. I remember picking up my son or dropping my son off in the 2nd grade. And his teacher told me that the children had went to the movies to see Straight Outta Compton. And I thought, I remember when I got a hold of NWA, I was too young. It wasn't good then. I'm like, what they gonna do with it now? Mm-hmm. But these are things that just being at school, you find out about sex. A little girl in the 2nd grade told my son she wanted to have sex with him. Wow. And I was like, wait a minute. I said, whoa. I said, do you know what that is? He said, no, mommy. He didn't even know what sex was. And I'm like, I'm not about to let this child who's been misinformed make me have conversations with my 7-year-old about sex in the 2nd grade. And I'm like, but like you said, you just send them to school. So we as parents, we as mothers, we as teachers, we as, you know, ministers, we have to not shun these conversations, and we have to be bold and stand up and begin to talk about the things that we really don't want to talk about. We're living in a time where there's YouTube, there's social media, there's school. These kids know stuff. And we at home, like Ebony said, we got to be at home teaching them, no, this is the real deal about this. This is not what you think.
I'm going to tell y'all how ignorant I was. I was sharing with Apostle Sonia that I literally was walking. How I knew I needed to really look into this is because I was cleaning the house, and all I could hear in my head, because I was on this thing, me and my 11-year-old have this thing about TikTok where she's daring me to see how many followers I can get and all this stuff, right? So all that kept popping up was the TikTok dance to the WAP. But I was thinking, because Cardi B has an accent, I was literally thinking that she was saying, that's a rap. That's a rap. Like W-R-A-P. So I'm sitting in my kitchen and I'm just cleaning. And I'm like, that's a rap. That's a rap. And all of a sudden I hear the words and my daughter is cracking up. And I'm like, wait a minute. Let's just pause this real quick. I mean, you know, because I really didn't know. But the beat had caught my ear. You know, I hear that's a rap. That's like, I'm just listening. I'm just like, Lord, okay, wait a minute. I need you to get my ear all the way together. Because for real, I did not know. And so then when I got the call, hey, have you seen? I'm like, no. But I'm clear if people have seen it, then my daughter has seen it. So let's have a conversation about it. And I think that what we don't want to miss also is that there are people, here's reality, that walk the line of what we see that's over sexualized, but then there are people that are in industries that don't, they just do that for the money. You understand what I'm saying? Like I have friends that are real life, like they're strippers, like mainstream strippers, and they get that money, but they not going home sleeping with nobody. The reality is that's the culture that some women are actually brought up in. And that's something else that just has to be dealt with at one point in time or another. So I never really take the road that you a hoe, you a hoe, you a hoe, or you this, you that. Mm-hmm. Reality is that for some people, it is a way of life for them. And I think that also has to be challenged, because when you listen to the 50 Cents of the world, who they say have street cred or they don't, right? They start to challenge their street cred. Like he talks about it, but he don't live that life for real. Drake, he talk about it, but he don't live that life for real. So I think we have to really be sensitive to understand where these women come from. And for Cardi B, it is her reality that, you know, she was stripping. She don't say nothing else about that. She was stripping. And when she realized that her body could make her money and to get her things that she was deprived of as she was growing up, That was her option. That was her option. And so what I say, even as a mother of an 11-year-old, you start looking for these empowerment classes for young girls, and they don't even start until the kids are like 15 or 16 years old. By then, it's too late.
Already imprinted in their head.
It's already there. So now we have to work backwards. And so, you know, we really have to figure out what's broken, where we feel like that 7 or 8-year-old, 9-year-old, 10-year-old, why don't they need any more activity than Girl Scouts and brownies?
Right.
And especially in the Black community, you won't find those typical Girl Scouts and brownies in the Black community too much.
And I'm at that stage. Don't talk to me about earning no badge. My child is at stake.
Yeah. So I wanted to say something too. Y'all talking some good stuff, and I'm gonna let Kiana and Siobhan soon as she comes back on. But I recall back then we had 50 Cent and Little Crazy Wayne degrading the identity of Black women, and you know, and put them in a level, you know, they loud, they angry, you know, they don't, basically he was saying they were unintelligent, but I like looking at exotic women. And so that's another a thing that I see in the Black community, that some people don't care for Black women based upon what they see on these music videos, these television, TVs, and different things. And then with 50, and I'm sure it's countless others. I can't think of that other guy name. I've been reading a lot of the stories regarding how they treat men and the thought processes of Black women. So, and basically what they're saying, Black women ain't good for nothing but just popping and stopping and dropping and leaving there, impregnating them and then moving on. So I thought that was pretty degrading in itself. Kenyatta, you want to say something, Siobhan? The floor is open, and then anybody else who wants to say something.
Yes, ma'am. Well, first of all, my name is Kiana. Thank you y'all for having me. I am a stay-at-home mom. I have 2 little babies, as y'all seen one of them, and I am married. And that is one of the things that I wanted to focus on wanted to, you know, bring up was marriage in regards to all of this, because a lot of my peers, a lot of my friends, are young. I'm 25, so I see a lot of my friends at high school, like I used to know in high school, on my Facebook and stuff like that, and people are asking, yo, what's so wrong with WAP and what's so wrong with this? But a lot of my friends are either just entering in marriage or, you know, is looking to get married and stuff like that. And I read an article in regards to this song, and it said, you know, a line, I read the lyrics of the video and I seen the video, and, you know, one of the lines is, let me show y'all or tell y'all how I got this ring. You know, Cardi B is married to Offset and whatnot. And so, you know, in the article, it talked about, you know, the ability to please a man sexually is basically all that you need, or all that you need to do in order to, you know, find a mate. Like you guys had talked about earlier, as far as like how, you know, women dress, you know, how we, you know, and I'm a big time Instagram user. Like I'm always on Instagram, and you see women, you know, posting pictures and, you know, things that are inappropriate, and it breaks my heart, because the biggest thing that I love marriage. I love what God has called marriage to be, and it breaks my heart when women think that this is how you get a husband, and it's completely the opposite. First of all, if you do get a husband like that, you're not going to get a good one that is going to respect you. And second of all, I don't like the fact that this is what women think they have to demean themselves to or lower themselves to in order to please a man. When you know, I hear godly men talking, they say, you know, I want a woman that is able to, you know, compliment me, is able to challenge me, able to help me grow. There's more to a woman than what her body looks like or what she can do in the bedroom, you know, stuff like that. I don't want my husband to look at me like a piece of meat. You know, I want him to look at me and be like, hey, she adds value to my life other than what she can do to please me physically. And so that is the biggest, the thing that caught my attention the most, because like I said, a lot of my friends are posting about marriage or talking about marriage, wanting to be married. And it's sad that this is, you know, putting forth, like, they don't see nothing wrong with this. And, you know, I see another thing is like women imitating. I think somebody, I'm sorry, I can't remember who, brought up TikTok and how, you know, everybody is, you know, copying the dances and stuff like that on TikTok, and it's okay. You know, it breaks my heart, like I said, because this does not lead to a relationship or a marriage that you will be happy in, that a woman should be in. You know what I'm saying? So that's one of the things I wanted to bring up.
That's good. And you know, you think about that, because if you enter into these relationships and if you get married, and if that man, his perception of how a woman should perform in bed is based upon a WAP video or pornography, they're going to expect that same thing. I look at Cardi B. I like Cardi B. I really like Cardi B. I think she's a smart businesswoman. I think she's pretty. I would love to meet her. I would love to meet the real Cardi B and not the one we see, but the one she portrays. You know, when she be up there dancing with Offset, and he just standing there, and she's doing all the work back, and you know, but to me, I believe he loves her. But when I look at them, I just see them as a sexual relationship. So what's going to happen when you're not, you know, you're not as tight as you are, you know? And so these perceptions that we're going with, well, I got to do, you know, well, my husband's not pleased. So now with what I was doing before, so now I got to go a little bit further. I got to put a pole in my room, you know, I got to, and then the other thing too, when did we get the idea that when I used to go to the club, I went to the club. I didn't go to the strip club. Women go to the strip club like it's the club. I'm like, what? So where do we get these mindsets and these thought processes? Where do we get this from? So anybody, you know, please jump in.
I would say this real quick. In regards to, we were talking about women feeling like, you know, because that line too, and that was one of the things that got me too, Kiana, was when she said, you know, I don't cook, I don't clean. Let me tell you how I got this ring. And I'm like, whoa, that's problematic. Like, wait a minute.
Yes.
But then I thought about it. I'm like, is it really? Because we're talking about us in regards, you know, to Black women, but we haven't even talked about how the Black man is over sexualized and hypersexualized, right? And so in his mind, you know, he doesn't want a pure woman, church man or not. They want a woman with some experience, right? That's what you hear men say. I don't want no virgin. Since when? You know, like, you know, since when you don't want a woman who everybody else ain't been in? Like, I don't, like, what? But you know what God showed me, sis? Remember in Sodom and Gomorrah, remember when those the 3 angels came down to Lot's house and they wanted those men. Mm-hmm. And Lot was trying to ward them off, like, nah, y'all can't have those. And they no, we want those men. Where they at? And he offered his virgin daughters to them. They declined. And what God was showing me about that is that there's this hyper over sexuality, even in the men, that doesn't look at women who are keeping themselves, who are abstaining, who are being honorable women. They get looked over for the more loose woman because she comes with a little bit more miles and a little bit more experience. Where does that spirit come from? That spirit is old. This ain't a new thing. Like, we could go back to the Bible. Y'all want a man over a virgin?
Wow, that's good.
That's the level of perverse, because now men are threesomes, pornography, masturbation. This is the norm.
And the sad thing about I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
The sad thing about that is, in regards to, you know, women who are and men who are looking for marriages, you invite this into your marriage and it's insatiable. Meaning it's never going to be fulfilled. If you want that type of woman is never going to fulfill that lust and perversion that you have. You're going to continue to, you know, look to other things and to do other things. And so it opens your marriage for a whole bunch of, and not just marriage, but relationships and in general. It opens it up to, you know, hurt, pain, you know, rejection, all types of stuff come with that.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
The reality is it also gives
go ahead.
expectation.
We can't hear you.
No, I was just saying the reality is that kind of expectation.
I could hear her, sis. Could you?
Okay, I hear it now.
Okay, great. So I was just saying that, you know, and even with that, most men, or I would say at least men I know, never have been with Meg Thee Stallion or Cardi B. And so, or the porno stars that they watch in these porno movies, or even that women may watch in porno movies. The reality is it's an expectation that you really have dreamt up in your mind.
Absolutely.
You don't know what it feel like, what it like, you don't know none of that. And so now you put your own imagination to it of what it should feel like, sound like, taste like, all that, whatever you got going on, right? And then you get with this one who you think you love, and then you decide that you're going to compare the two, but there's really no comparison. And that's what really makes these type of appetites kill off marriages before they start. Kills off, you know, we say stuff like the marriage bed is undefiled, but here's reality. It absolutely can be defiled. That's reality. The reality is that this is how, if that's how you got your man 9 times out of 10, that's how you're going to either keep him or lose him. Because at the end of the day, you know, you can never be that person. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, you can never be with a fantasy.
Absolutely. So you're going to kill yourself trying to keep up with the fantasy. I love wigs, but I don't do it for my husband. I do it because I get bored fast. You know what I mean? Like, I ain't trying to be a new woman every day for him. I just, listen, I got 5 kids. I'm just trying to live good. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Next minute is black, next minute is pink. But it's not for my husband. It's just because I just want to live, you know, let me live. But when you try to live up to that appetite, right, it's insatiable, just like it is. And it kills off all feeling or love. It kills off the intimacy. It just kills off all of that. Once the excitement is gone, that's why men cheat. When men cheat and they get caught, they stop. Because they're not pumping like that no more. The excitement, the thrill is gone. That's what they say, right? And you know, that's how you kind of lead all of this into your marriage, into your relationship, because you're trying to obtain something that you really don't have anything to compare it to.
Hey, Tia, can I ask you something? So when these young girls, when you come in and when they come in for counseling, do they have an expectation of marriage, or they just expect what they get? They just get what they get?
Sometimes they have an expectation of marriage. I think one of the hardest things to deal with is what have you been taught first. So if you're taught this is what marriage is because this is what I see my parents do, then your expectation of marriage is what you've been taught for 17 years or 15 years. That's what your expectation is. You know, we keep hitting on the mentality that's so pervasive nowadays. So if I'm raising my son and my daughter to when I was married to my first husband, if I would have stayed in that relationship, my son and my daughter would have grown up. Oh, that's what marriage is. This is what it is. But I chose to get out of that situation. And when I remarried, my children are taught respect. My children aren't taught abuse or anything like that. So I myself had to change my mentality of what my expectation of marriage was, even with that. And then it had to trickle down to my children. So coming in, if you're constantly taught abuse, and disrespect and all of those things, I've grown up with the expectation of this is what a love match is. This is what marriage is supposed to be about. You got to work on that mentality to switch that around to really start hitting home that no, this isn't okay. And as many years as it took to build that, sometimes it takes that many years to break that back down and reteach this is what is actually normal. And counseling helps with that. And, you know, just being around a good group of people who can pour into you. And some of these young girls, they don't have that. All that's poured into them is the negative. So
I wanted to, Erica, are you able to talk? I want Erica to say something. Can you just come on and talk about a little bit of the history? Because I know you're African American. You have a degree in that. Can you just talk a little bit about this from that standpoint? Release some of your brilliantness.
Which particular standpoint?
Well,
I was
just
listening to the whole about marriage.
yeah, the marriage, but the sexualization from the history. Just give us, because I know you that's part of your degree in, and just share a little bit of that insight. And then what I'm going to do after that, I want to talk about some solutions, and then I want to talk about when we're going to do this again, because I think we just lifting the cap up. And I just want to say this one thing when y'all were talking about the videos. Hold that. Is that I was telling people, watch the video, and they say, well, I just heard it and I don't want to watch it. Listen, we cannot turn a deaf ear to what's out here for our children, our grandchildren, and whoever, our nieces and nephews. We got to hear what they're hearing, because we can't correct what we don't know. So go ahead, Erica.
Yes. So a couple of things I wanted to hit on. So we do know that the hypersexualization of Black women definitely hit when it came to enslavement. There's a woman, her name is Sarah Bartman, or Saartjie Baartman. You can research her. She was a South African Hottentot. That's my husband and my son in the background. She was a South African Hottentot Venus, they called her. And so she had a very large, of course, buttocks, and some European settlers came over and they offered her some indentured servitude. And to fast forward, she said yes to the particular agreement, only for her to then be enslaved and put in a circus, and for her very large behind and breasts to be put on display in France, and her to be toured all over Europe. She ended up dying around the age of 32. And then not only did they exploit her when she was alive, but they exploited her in her death, where they cut off her buttocks, cut off her breasts, had them in jars up until about the early 2000s, like around 2008 or 9. And they, within the last 10 years, they sent.
Oh, Erica.
And even like, yes.
You breaking up, that's all.
Yes, ma'am.
You're giving such good information, you're breaking up, but go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry. My phone is dying and my headphones, I got the new iPhone, so I can't charge, and anyway. So that's that history that has still been going on. Present day. And then even when it comes to like the movement or the dancing, a lot of the movement, the twerking and so forth, and so on, is taken out of context, right? And so one of the things that I teach my students in African dance is you can twerk all day long, know that this is a part of a ritual from this particular people group, but the woman is covered. And so when you take movement out of particular context, you then also co-sign in the hypersexualization of those movements that are considered are very traditional and rooted in the African coming of age experience. So this has been, again, going on for a lot. When you look at even the type of roles that they have for Black women in the entertainment industry, there is the tragic mulatto. There is the sapphire, who's typically the dark-skinned Black woman who has an attitude or has very dysfunctional relationships with Black men. The tragic mulatto is or the sapphire, who also is
she giving some good stuff and we can't hear.
Sexualizing her, you continue to see these things played out in present day. When it comes to how Black women are viewed and how Black women are seen, 400 plus years of white supremacy and enslavement, we have taken on those ideas and we allow them to play out subconsciously. I will say this too. I didn't grow up in a Christian household, right? My mama got 2 baby daddies, grew up in the projects. Anything in my house went, as long as you didn't come home with a baby. Anything in my house went. But something in me told me I wanted to be a virgin until I got married. And when I tell you anything went down in my household, I'm talking about coming from alcoholics and drug addicts, right? My mother had enough sense in her, enough moral clause in her. I remember one time she took my CD player and wanted to go to the store real quick. She came back 10 minutes later. Somebody grabbed me from the back of my shirt and threw me against the wall and said, "No child of mine will listen to Little Kim." My mother, and all of her stuff, was able to check me to let me know that listening to that type of music was not something that she would allow in her household. And so again, that always, and then this is me not saved, allowed to have sex if I wanted to, and anything else in between. But I knew from my household that listening to that type of music was not okay, and that thing stayed with me. And so ultimately, there has to be God, a moral compass, a value system in households to be able to change the narrative. My son is 3. One of the things that my husband and I do to him is talk to him about, who do you kiss or who do you hug? We say mommy, daddy, and your wife. My son now will fuss sometimes about not having a wife, but we have that conversation with him so that he knows when he gets older, you're not looking forward to. And I'm not, people have their own stories, but we're training them up in the way that he should go. But in the backdrop of his mind will be is that I need a wife, not a girlfriend, not a jump off, not a whatever. I need a wife. And so again, it has to be I said a whole bunch of stuff, so I'm just going to pause it.
That was good. That was good. But you forgot to tell him what Deuce said when when Ryan was kissing you about the wife thing, and he didn't like it.
He didn't like it. He said, "Mommy is my wife," and then we had to have a whole conversation.
Cause he's like, wait a minute, you said, hold up now. So,
but we have that conversation with him a lot so that he can understand that when he becomes a man, this is something that he needs to look at and invest in as he gets older. That's good. Thank you for sharing that. Bonnie, you want to say something?
I just wanted to say with Erica, I'm glad she shared that. That's amazing, because I was just having a conversation that we really do live in a time where, especially if you come from a Christian household. Well, first of all, you can come from a Christian household and everything under the sun be a go anyway, right? Even if you are from a Christian household. But come on, let's be real, okay? Now, the first man that ever messed me up was not a heathen. He was actually a minister or a deacon, whatever you call him, okay? So we're going to talk real. But the other thing, we'll get to that. That's a whole nother broadcast. Okay. So, but I love how she talks about how she talks to her son, because I was telling my daughter, like, I had to apologize to her because we are so fixated, or I know I could be so fixated on living my life through her. In other words, I love God, or I thought I loved him, but I had 3 kids out of wedlock, right? 2 kids within marriage. And so when I started seeing my daughter do certain things, I started to parent her out of fear. And I started to shove Proverbs 31 down her throat, right? But the reality is, when you grow up, or you have young women that you're teaching to be that Proverbs 31 woman, and then there's not a world that has enough Boazes, right, to meet them, then you always have that moral compass that begins to get skewed. So I think one of the things when you talk about solutions is we have to begin to talk to our sons with the same expectation that we talk to our daughters with, so that when our daughters do grow up, there can be a Boaz to match her Proverbs 31. There can be a Boaz to match her Ruth. There can be, because when you meet somebody, you out there, okay, so then now Ruth is meeting Ruth now. Mm-hmm. Because Boaz hasn't grown up with the same mentality. Like, he hasn't been put that same, he wasn't taught that his jewels were just as valuable. Mm-hmm. And so I think that as a solution, we as parents, right, we at home now in this COVID-19 situation, the Lord is really funny, because he's really teaching us that the pastor shouldn't be teaching your kids, the apostle shouldn't be teaching your kids, the teacher shouldn't be teaching your kids, YouTube, TikTok should not be teaching your kids, but you, sir, ma'am, should be teaching your kids.
Come on. Absolutely. And Bonnie, you want to say something? She got kicked out again. I was giving her an opportunity to say something. And the thing that bothers me, because everybody's celebrating, we got the Bible back in, Bible is coming. We want the Bible back in school, but you should be teaching that at your home. You shouldn't let anyone else determine how your child to receive God. You don't know who's teaching and what they teaching or how they're teaching. So I think that was great what you said, Eb. I think what Erica laid that fire down, I thought that was good. Kenyatta, I thought that all of you all had great things to say. Bonnie, you gonna come back on? I want to hear what you have to say right quick. And then I'm going to sign out and let all you all say what you got to say. And then we're going to pick up this conversation again. So go ahead, Bonnie. Siobhan? We can't hear you. You gonna say something, Siobhan? I guess she can't hear me. I guess she ain't gonna say nothing. So, but here, I'm gonna let y'all sign out. Anybody got anything to say? I'm talking about solutions. What should we do? You gonna say something, Vonnie? Go ahead, John.
I was just gonna say, I'm married as well with I have two sons. My oldest is 11, he'll be 12, and I have an 8-year-old. And I also tell them as well, I teach them not to take a woman's virtue. So, I'm teaching them, also not just, okay, women have all this responsibility, but the truth of the matter is our young men have a responsibility as well to treat our Black women and with a certain level of honor and dignity and respect. And if they're not being taught that as well, and I love how Erica said it too, like they have jewels too. What you have is precious. So your seed is precious, and you shouldn't just, look at it so loosely that you spread yourself. It's okay, to save yourself to marriage, no matter what it is. These are the things that we have to teach at home so that when they get out in the street and they're getting peer pressure by their homeboys, then they're not forced to, let me just go ahead and take this girl down and take her friend down and then take her cousin down and take all these people down, because that's what I feel like a man is supposed to do. And, I teach them, no, don't take another woman's virtue. If that ain't your wife, you shouldn't be kissing her. If that ain't your wife, there's certain things you shouldn't do to her, because guess what you do or what you don't do to her, and you're not married to her, when she leaves you, she's going to go to somebody else carrying wounds that you did. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So these are things that, like I said, that I do teach, that we teach our sons as well, because, we have Black men. I'm raising Black men. So I have a responsibility as well, not only to carry myself a certain way, but to instill in them what they need to be doing as well, because, they're not just going to get it out through osmosis. It's just not going to come just to them out the clear blue. These are things that has to be taught to them. And so I believe as parents, why I'm not going to wait on a mentor or somebody to come and take interest in my children for them to get a lesson. It's like, no, they're mine, and I have, so obviously if God gave them to me, God gave me the ability to teach them and gave me something to teach them, and I'm going to do it. Point blank and period. They know how to pray. They know how to hear from the Lord. They know what's right and wrong. Why? Because these are things, prayer don't have a gender, so these are the things that, that will only help them in the end, teaching them what to look for in a young woman. At the same time, if you see a woman that may be a little too loose, and it could be a lot of reasons, she could have been sexually abused, she could have, she could be, getting abused in another way, physically abused. There are a lot of things that go into those behaviors, because it's just a symptom of something else. It's not just, oh, that person's a hoe. No, it's always a symptom of something, a bigger issue. So I teach my children, even if she is that way, you don't disrespect her. You don't treat her different. These are things that because I'm teaching them, hey, there are some things that, what I'm saying, there are some things that, you can do. So I'm saying all that to say, we have a responsibility as well to teach our boys too,
T, I have a question before we get off. So how many, do you see a lot of repeat people that come back, or does some of them take that counseling and it changes their life and they walk it out, or they continue to come back and back? What happens within that arena?
It's a very thin line, to be honest. I see a lot of repeat people, unfortunately. We, in the shelter, depending on what type of shelter situation you may go to, is set up, especially if you have dependent kids, they want to give you a new start. They want to, give you last month, help you pay some bills, so you don't end up back in the same dependent situation if that's your situation. And unfortunately, when I have to say again, if you're raised to see abuse as what you consider love, um, you're going to keep going back to that. It takes a totally different mindset to grab a hold of something new, something that you want better than what you've always been presented to. Um, and that comes from God. That comes from having a relationship with God. Even in my situation, if I wasn't taught God, although my father was very abusive, he taught us who God was. He gave me the ability to pray. And if I didn't have that, at least have that foundation, I could have been a repeat offender. I mean, I stayed in my marriage for 5 years before it finally occurred to me that I could get a divorce and God was still going to love me and that I didn't deserve to be abused. So some people assume, this is what love is and this is what it means to me. So come on, please abuse me, please abuse me. And if you don't have somebody pouring something else into you, I'm going to repeat the same cycle that I've always known for all these years. This is what I've known. So this is what I'm about to gravitate back to. I heard Pastor Shana say, we got to teach our boys. We got to teach our boys. And I heard Erica say, we teaching her son. And it's so very true. I've often said, especially when it comes to sexual assault, like a lot of times we hear the conversation of if they weren't dressed that way and if they didn't put themselves in that situation, that wouldn't have happened to them. Well, who's teaching our boys that it's not okay to sexually assault women? So if I can teach my daughter you shouldn't dress that way and you shouldn't have did this and you shouldn't have did that, the responsibility still says I need to teach my son that it's not okay to be disrespectful to women as well. And we don't have that. We're teaching our sons, hey, this is how a man is supposed to treat a woman. So if that's what a man is supposed to do, then woman, this is what you're supposed to accept. And so, yes, then Tia sees them in the office repeatedly over and over and over.
So do you think that, so let me ask, because we see a lot of people want to go in female ministries or where we want to go in and speak to the women and kind of, love on them and minister to them. Do you think that helps, or is just something that they?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I think, and this is not even so much on a spiritual level, but I do believe there comes a point in time in a woman's life where she's simply just tired. Yeah. I'm tired of accepting this. And I think they'll do what's necessary to get out of that situation. So I believe that as long as there's going to be one time that this woman who's repeatedly experienced this situation, I'm always seeking out help for this situation. One of those times is going to stick because I'm tired of seeing Tia. Like one of these days, when I come back to see Tia, I want her to know that I've accomplished this, I've accomplished this, I've accomplished this, and we're clapping for her at that point versus let's start from the beginning again and give you the steps and the tools to try to get out of this situation. We simply get tired sometimes. And once we're tired, then we are more accepting of the tools that someone is constantly giving me to get out of that situation. But that's an internal thing. It's internal. Like when are we tired? When are we tired? And when are we ready to take those tools to, and be effective at using those tools as well? And if we're not, we're going to continue to repeat that cycle.
That's so helpful. Thank you so much. I appreciate you sharing. Kiana, you want to say anything before we get off? And
yes, ma'am. I wanted to add on like what she was just saying, as far as like I want to come back and say, I accomplished this and I accomplished that. That was one of the things that like stuck out to me in regards to women, like across the board. There was one time my pastor, Pastor Tia, had spoke to me and said, find your value. Like, who are you outside of being a wife? Who are you outside of being a mother? You know what I'm saying? And a lot of times, like women and I'm speaking for like the stuff that I see on Facebook, stuff like that from my, generation and whatnot. Like, I want this and I want that, but who are you outside of what you look like or how you can dress or, what attention you can get from, how you're acting or, stuff like that. And that's what going back to the video and women, mimicking and mocking this, like, this is how, you know, I get a mate, or this is how I attract attention. Like, what else do you have to bring to the table other than, you know, what you look like, or, you know, how you dress, or what your body looks like, you know? And the main solution I could think of at the moment is, you know, what do you have to bring to the table other than, you know, physically being able to, you know, perform? Like, what do you have on the inside of you that makes you who you are? You know what I'm saying? That's going to add value to somebody's life. And then also, not even to add value to somebody's life, but also to be proud of the woman that you are. Like, you know, I accomplished this, and God revealed this about who I am. I'm sorry, y'all. Dog. But you know what I'm saying? That's one of the solutions I could think of as women. Like, let's figure out our identity and who we are, and be proud of the woman that we can be without having to be, you know, half dressed, and you know what I'm saying.
So, Apostle Sonia, I see Siobhan is actually in the chat. She's saying that she teaches her sons to respect themselves first, and that I believe when Tia was talking, she was saying that she believes that this is really a pattern that is hard to break, I guess, the cycle of abuse. And that if we know better, we can do better. And I love that, because one solution that I want to end with, and I know I talk a lot, you know, I could talk all day, but is that as a community, specifically our Black community, our African American community, we have to learn to stop keeping secrets.
Yes.
You know, if mom will tell you, you know, yes, I did this, yes, I did this, but here's the reality of what that did to me. If dad will say, yes, I did this, yes, I did this, and oh my goodness, my heart is broken because of how our family ended up, because of my poor decisions. If we can just stop. I remember, I think I was on baby number 2. I rolled over on my grandma's bed. And, you know, I've always been a little smart, I think. I rolled over on my grandma's bed, and I looked at her pillow. And I realized that it said, it had, oh, I'm sorry, y'all. I'm sorry. It had my mother's, my grandmother's wedding date on it. And then I started doing math. I was like, wait, okay, so hold up. Wait a minute, hold on. So I ain't the only one in this family that done had babies out of wedlock. It didn't start with my mother. Like, it goes back generations. And that's no shade. That says that had I known, then the shame that came with some of this stuff, I would have never had to walk through.
Mm-hmm.
And so a solution for our African American communities, like I talked to my daughter at 11. I remember she was 2 years old. It changed my life. She was talking with her Barbies, and she said, I walked past her room, and she said, I'm going to grow up and I'm going to have a lot of babies, and my boyfriend is going to stay at home and take care of them while I go work hard. Pause. Come on, little girl. Because now I know what I'm modeling in front of my children. So it snatched me from here to that place where I needed to be. So now I can talk real to my kids and tell them, yeah, you're beautiful and everything. Yeah, I know you think your mom's amazing. However, this is what I had to walk through, and this is what it has caused. Like, even the pain that your kids feel from our bad decisions and our bad choices, if we pull them into there and stop keeping secrets, right? Stop making them feel a certain type of way and keep us on a pedestal, then I really do believe that half the stuff that we walk through, that our families will not want to have to ever walk through, and neither will our kids.
That's good, and that's good, because I have to think back in my daughters, and you know, like I said, if we had known a lot of things, I think a lot of us, well, that's another conversation for another time, talking about parenting. But I just want to thank you, ladies. I don't think we resolved everything tonight, but at least we got something on the floor to talk about. And a couple of the solutions we came up with is to teach our sons that they are just as valuable as women, and their jewels are just as important. And the Bible even talks about men don't spread your seed everywhere. You know what I mean? And how to maintain yourself. And We have to teach our daughters that same understanding. And then too, I want to say to everyone, listen, we cannot be afraid. I can't be afraid to listen to Future. I can't be afraid to listen to all this stuff out here, because I have to know what they're listening to, because I cannot fight or curtail or change the direction of what they're hearing, so I can correct the path to make sure, hey, I know that beat is dope, but the words that's going in your spirit without your permission is shaping your identity. So I need to change that sound that you're hearing. You know what I mean? So we have to listen. I'm saying to the adults, we have to stop being so afraid. Oh, that's going to be the devil music. Listen, get over that. Go and listen to what your children listen to, so you won't be caught staying in the house when they're 16 and 17 and out of control and glad to be in muted. Even though Cardi B in the videos were make believe, but they may be in those type of situations in real life, and all it would have taken if you just to listen to what they were listening to, then they won't wind up in Tia's facility over and over again, because their identity was shaped in, if my coochie is the ATM, so I have to sell it to get what I want, but in the process of being sold, I'm gonna get beat, whipped, slain, maybe sold into human trafficking. Adults, we have to stop being afraid to have these conversations. Look, God, listen, if a devil jump on you on one song, then you ain't with God anyway. You have to change that mindset. You cannot be ignorant of Satan's devices. You cannot act like God. I don't know why we act like God ain't got no power, but then he only has power when we need stuff, when we want something. God is all power, so you have the ability to hear stuff, to critique it, and to rebuke it out your children's lives. And so, and a lot of this music causes the beat of it. We as African people, man, we love that bass, because I used to DJ, and I still kind of DJ, and I love that house bass. I love that house music, but I still have to be careful to what I put in my ear gates, because I do not want it to shape my identity. So we have to be careful of that. But again, we talked about that. We also discussed that, one thing I would like to see if women groups would rise up and go and mentor some young girls in elementary, spend an hour a day and once a week, and go to some elementary schools or some junior high schools or middle schools or high schools, and begin to mentor these girls and get some mindsets change. It ain't costing you nothing. Look, put the blunt down, put everything down, and just take that time to invest. I heard Jane Elliott say today, to live a life without purpose or destiny, and I ain't talking about what y'all talking about, I'm going to preach to the world, to not be impactful is a waste of time. Why would you live in this earth and not be impactful and doing something to cause somebody's lives to change? Some of us have great influence that can open doors and change lives, but we don't speak about it. We're going to continue to see people like Cardi B. Now, can I say something about Cardi B? I believe Cardi B is a bad businesswoman. Let me tell you something. But if she just had one mentor in there, what if she had someone like maybe AOC had in her life, or so, the opportunities that AOC or somebody else had, she probably would be in Washington changing lives right now, with great businesswoman running great, because she does a great business now, but without the trappings of the other things that come along with it. So we have to take accountability for some of the things that we're allowing. So all I want to say is, ladies, I thank you so much for taking the times out your day and to have this discussion. I pray this won't be the last time. Maybe we got something next month and can build up on this. And I love the solutions. There are things we can do. And again, women, men, please do not ignore your son. Don't think it's okay for your son to go out here and sow his wild oats. His seeds are valuable. Look, let me tell you, when they spread their seed where it shouldn't be, we got, like I won't say this about Future. Future got 12 kids and by 10 different baby mothers. Why? Because nobody taught him to control his appetite. Nobody taught him how to respect his body. No one taught him how to respect his body. And by him not respecting his body, he didn't respect the women. You know what I'm saying? You got, what's his name? Drake. All these women throwing their bodies at Drake. Drake going to impregnate a stripper. You hear me? He goes and impregnates a stripper. Now I'm not knocking them, but that's what she made her life to be. So she did this as a living because she wanted that life, because she wanted some celebrity. So I'm not knocking strippers. Hey, I'm not knocking y'all. Listen, I know there's stories behind it. I know y'all are brilliant. Some of y'all are going to college, like Ev said. Some of y'all are great business women, and this is the only way you can make the money to sustain the lifestyle that you're trying to get, so you can obtain your degree and make that money. So I'm not hating on you for that. What I'm saying is, but I'm just saying the mentality of our men. You know what I mean? The mentality of our men. So we have to do something different. In order for us to do something, we have to be different. You know, we always talk about it takes a village to raise. What is it? It takes a village to do what? Y'all know that saying. I can never get it right. Y'all know I'm not good with that. It what?
Takes a village to raise the children.
Yes, but the village is broken. So we got to figure out how to get that village back. How do we change that village where we can speak to them? Where we see a little girl walking the wrong way, we don't have to be afraid to say something without her mama coming trying to fight us, or her for that matter of fact. Or men, we can't be afraid of boys and young men. We're at that point. So anyway, again, I think we've had great forum from Cali to Ohio to the D to Maryland to Chi-Town down there in South Carolina. I thank you ladies for joining this forum. I've learned a lot, and it has really changed my thought processes and mindset on some things. And I really appreciate you all taking time out your day to help us. Not just us, but listen, we can't be quiet anymore. We have to raise our voices. We have to get the village together. So I want to say thank you, ladies. God bless everyone for listening. Listen, I pray that this was impactful, and we're going to have another one. If you like this forum, please share. Please share with your friends, share with whomever, so they can, so we can be a change agent. Again, what's the use of having something if you can't do nothing with it, right? Ain't no sense of just having a title, I'm this and I'm that, and you just live in any kind of way so you can get on the pulpit and preach. I don't care about your preaching. I want to know what you're doing out here in these streets. So God bless everybody. Right. I thank y'all. Journey. I thank y'all so much. And I love each and every one of y'all. Hopefully we can do this again.
Love you. Yes, this was awesome. Thank you.
Yes, and man, y'all some brilliant women. Look at my little nephew in the back, stripping. Look at him, got his diaper on. Look at him. Look at him. Going up the stairs. So, all right, I love y'all. Y'all be blessed. Thank y'all so much. I really appreciate all that y'all done tonight. Sharing truths and sharing your heart. God bless.
God bless. Good night, everybody.
God bless.
Good night.
Good night.